Hey, it's Trip here from the 72nd. This video is about bullseye calls and how to interpret, how to locate on the radar and the HSD those called bullseye targets. I've made a couple videos in the past about how to do that. The latest was using the bullseye symbol here seen in blue. And if I got a call, say a target was 330 for 50, then what I would do is I would say, well, here's bullseye. And if I'm going 046 heading, then north must be a line coming out of bullseye about this direction. So if the target was, what did I say, 330 at 50. So if this is 360, then 330 would be around here. And he would be somewhere along this line that's at 330. So I'd have to get my radar looking at that line, and eventually his blip or his return will show up on the target on the radar. But I was browsing the forums over at Falcon Lounge, and a pilot named Serpent came up with a brilliant idea. Instead of imagining where this 360 line is, this north line coming out of bullseye, he just places it on the mission schedule page before you get in the airplane. The same mission planning, mission schedule page that you use to mark other steer point lines. What he did, if you look at the HSD, he puts a line centered on bullseye extending to the north. So he always has that reference line. Unfortunately, it doesn't show up on the radar, but on the HSD, that's the 360-degree line. So right now, if AWACS called a target, let's say it was 330 at 50, then I can see that if this is north, then about 30 degrees less than that is somewhere along this line, 330. So the target is somewhere along this line here. And I think that's a brilliant idea. So I can tell that just by looking at this, that what my relative heading is, I've got the widest angle I can on my radar, 60 degrees either side of center line, and I'm looking along this radial. I'm looking at that radial. So eventually the target's going to show up if I have my antenna elevation set properly. So I may have to adjust that. I don't know if the target's up high or low. AWACS would tell you though. So you could adjust your antenna elevation to cover not only this radial that he's supposed to be on from bullseye, but you can cover his altitude. And so you should see the target come up, should be displayed. So let's say I'm flying along here. I'm just going to honk around here a little bit and change my radar elevation, or azimuth rather. So let's say I'm flying along here like this, and I get a bullseye call of 045 for 30 miles. So immediately I look at the bullseye symbol. Here's north, 45 degrees. This is 90 right here, obviously. So 90 degrees to the right from 360. That's 90. So 45 is right along this line. So he's 045 for 40. The first thing I need to do is turn the jet so that my radar can paint along that line, the 045. So now I'm starting to get returns if my antenna elevation is correct. I'm starting to get returns along this line because I'm looking right at it. As a matter of fact, I can narrow down the view and locate the target a little bit quicker. But if that target is 045 for 30, then he should be right along this line. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. It just helps with orientation. I don't have to look for this north flag on this inner circle of the HSD. That indicates north. So here, this tick mark would be east. I just look at this and I say, well, that's north, so east must be over here. What I don't recommend is that you put 4 lines emanating out of bullseye, one for north, one for east, south, and west, because in the heat of battle, you're going to get confused on which one's north and of these 4 lines. So just have the one coming out of bullseye here. And the other thing that I was thinking about a little bit more on this was, in addition to having a line that comes out of bullseye at 360, why not make that line, say, right at 30 miles from bullseye? So on the mission schedule page on the map, just extend that steer point line, extend one end of it to that first bullseye circle. From on my map, it's 30 degrees. I don't know if that's configurable or not, but from the center of bullseye to the first concentric ring on the bullseye circle on the map page in the mission schedule, that is 30 miles. So this is my range scale. So if the target is 045 for 30 miles, I know he's right about here, because from here to here is 30 miles, so there's 30 miles there. If it's at 60, then I know he's out here about twice this distance, and so forth. So after that, the next thing I want to do is, once I start getting, returns or start painting targets out here, I want to know if there are other returns. I want to know which one's the bandit, so I'll do a quick scan call. And so I have on this page for technique, I just set that to mode 4, because the guy that doesn't show up as mode 4 out here, that's probably my boy. So I'll further interrogate him and get a confirmation from AWAC, so I can get missiles on him as soon as possible. So that's it. His brilliant idea was to put a north line emanating out of Bullseye, and my little flash was to make that line a certain distance reference, so that I don't have to look down here and say, well, from me to Bullseye is 59 miles, so blah blah blah. I could just easily have that 30-mile reference right there. And so that's it for that. One other thing I wanted to add about bullseye calls. I don't know about you, but when one of my wingmates calls a target out, let's say he's 313 for 54 miles, that's a lot of numbers. He's got 313, 4, 50, 50. 4, F-O-R, can be interpreted as the number 4, so that gets kind of confusing. I wouldn't say, 313 for 50 miles. I would say something like 313 at 50. Just separate those two numbers. The other thing that's helpful is if you make the bearing part of that bullseye call, if you make that separate numbers, 313 would be 313. And then the distance, you always say it as if you were reading it on a page as it was written. 50 would be 50. So 313 at 50 kind of rings in my ear a lot better than 313 at 50, or 313 at 54. And that's the other thing that I would change too. If my wingman has a target at 313 for 54, just round it to the next 5 degrees or 5 miles. So 313 would be 315. I just, 315, I can process that number better than 313. 315, if it was 54, I would just say 55. 315 at 55. I mean, that, while I'm turning toward the target, that just kind of, helps, it just rings in my ear better. I can remember that better. 315 at 55 just sounds better to me than 313, at 54. Okay, enough on that. So I hope this technique with the line and making the line a certain distance will be helpful in locating called targets for you. Thanks. Trip out.